It's that time of the year when the NBA teams have trimmed down their rosters while the EuroLeague teams try to pick up the scraps. Okay, that definitely sounds a bit too harsh, but in this video I'll take a look at all the recently waived NBA players and see which EuroLeague teams could actually use them the most. Let's begin with, in my eyes, the best playmaker available, Killian Hayes. The French-American started his career in Europe and in 2020 was picked 7th overall by the Detroit Pistons. Fast forward 4 years later, Detroit Pistons have waived him, then he got signed by the Nets and got cut again. His issue is clear, he lacks a stable shot from the outside, so let's look at the teams that lack a playmaker off the bench and have shooters around. I'm looking at two teams, Barcelona and Gytis, because both of these teams have lost their backup point guards in Nicolas Laprovitola and Tyrone Wallace. Considering Gytis needs more of a playmaker and Barcelona needs more of a guy to replace Laprovitola's scoring, I would go with Killian Hayes going to Gytis on this one. For Barcelona, I have a different name that could provide scoring off the bench, Lonnie Walker IV. Ever since leaving the Spurs, he hasn't found himself a role in either the Lakers or the Nets, and just recently he got cut from the Boston Celtics, so it seems like he'll either have to wait around or explore overseas. I think he's definitely a better shooter than Hayes, but that's not where his strengths lie. He relies on his athleticism to get buckets, plus I definitely see potential for him to be great on defense. So all these things considered, I could see him being a great energy spark off the bench for Barcelona, with the possibility of even replacing Tomas Satoransky in the starting lineup, as he's actually struggling with shooting, who's hitting only 10% of his field goals right now. One name that really stands out in this whole list is TJ Warren. It's already been years since that legendary bubble performance, but just seeing his name in the free agency list made me remember all of them. Of course, he had that foot injury that kept him out for almost 2 years, and ever since he came back, he hadn't been able to find his footing. Pun definitely intended. Anyways, besides the roles that he has had for the Nets, Suns or Timberwolves, I think he's capable of being a go-to bucket getter in Europe. Think sort of a Nigel Hayes-Davies without the defensive assets. Now, who could use this lengthy wing in the EuroLeague? Well, that's the problem. I looked through every EuroLeague roster and I realized that this position is quite stacked. The only place I would see him getting appropriate minutes to rebuild his career would be Alba Berlin, but I doubt they have such ambitions this season. Now, a quick reminder that we have a second channel called Outside the NBA, where you can find videos where we talk exclusively about the NBA topics. The other thing you could check out is NBA and EuroLeague game odds, which you could find in Rabona's website. I'll leave all the links in the description below. Right, coming back to the video, one of the best shooters available right now might be Landry Shamet. He's been bouncing around different teams his whole career, now got cut in the preseason by the Knicks, and I believe it's time to see if he can establish himself as a valuable piece in Europe. There are plenty of teams that lack shooters and secondary ball handlers, so it's not such an easy task as it might seem. However, Virtus Bologna, who haven't won a game yet, would probably benefit the most. Having lost Ife Lundberg, they definitely lack a threat from the perimeter, as right now it's either 30-year-old Bellinelli, who's a bit of a liability on D, Cordinia, who isn't necessarily a stable shooter but also can play the 3, or Rajon Tucker, whose shooting numbers aren't there either. So I could definitely see Landry Shamet in Bologna's offensive schemes, playing on and off the ball and just hitting those 3-pointers. Now, Kevin Knox is probably one of the more controversial names in this list, as many New York fans consider him a bust. Which is fair enough, he was a 5-star recruit and was picked 8th overall by the Knicks, but then only proved that he's super inconsistent in all sides of basketball. Warriors picked him up and then waived him right before the season started. Based on his last few years, it seems like he has matured a bit and his upside might be better over in Europe. As for teams, it's really hard to pick a team where he would shine in the EuroLeague, but I would say Asvel Villeurbanne could be that place where he could just hit those spot-up 3-pointers. The only player who already played in the EuroLeague and actually did it last season is Frank Kaminsky. He actually had an up-and-down season with Partizan Belgrade, but the team had a complete overhaul, replacing pretty much everyone, including the center. Recently, he tried to get a spot in Phoenix, where he already played before, but was cut pretty much shortly after. While Kaminsky isn't reliable on defense, I could see him helping some teams out as a stretch 5, so if I was Efes, Baskonia or Virtus, I would definitely consider Kaminsky. And just because I've been putting guys into exact teams, I'll do the same and put Kaminsky into Baskonia, where you could imagine him being like Matthew Costello a few years ago. Finally on this list, I got Nasir Little. After 4 years with the Trailblazers, he got traded to the Suns in the Damian Lillard trade and now has lost his place in the league, with Miami getting rid of the forward. I think he's one of, if not the best wing defender available, who can also hit a spot-up 3. Sounds an awful lot like Isaac Bonga, who has left Bayern Munich and joined Partizan Belgrade this offseason. And Bayern is exactly where I think Little could thrive, covering some defensive spots of their undersized guard duo of Carson Edwards and Shabazz Napier. So those are my picks, but let me know in the comments what do you think, if I missed out on any of these free agents that could join and where they could join. Maybe my fits were horrible, so let me know all about it in those comments. Once again, check our second channel, all the links are in the description, and I'll see you in the next one.